Welcome to the Team SNG deck profile. While I have your attention, I'd like to ask you guys, do leave us a like, comment, and subscribe. Also, check out Team's Facebook page. Link will be down in the description below. Today's deck profile is going to be OjaMelffy. What I love about this deck profile is it combines the cutest archetype in the game with Melffy. This deck profile has got the ability to take advantage of the fact that all the Ojamas are level 2 beasts and all the Melffys are level 2 beasts to go into Xyz plays that benefit the Melffy engine, or you can use the Ojamas and the Melffys to go into link plays in the Ojama engine with Ojama Emperor, and potentially to get into some of the boss monsters like Ojama Knight and Ojama King to control your opponent's board. So this deck has a lot of versatility in that sense, and the Melffy's ability to flood the board can also be really helpful. So without further ado, let's stop beating around the bush and let's get right into it. Starting with the monsters, the first monsters that we run are two of all three original Ojama brothers. So we have 6 vanilla level 2 beasts with 0 attack and 1000 defense, and these are the original trio. They're classic and they gotta be in the deck. They're here for several different reasons, but the main reason that they're currently here is for Oja Magic, which allows you to search them straight out of the deck. Next, we run 3 of the most important Ojama in Ojama Blue. Ojama Blue is the main searcher for the deck on the Ojama side of the field, and that is because if Ojama Blue is destroyed by battle, whether it is we declared the attack and blew it up ourselves, or our opponent destroys it, then we get to search out not 1, but 2 Ojama cards and add them to our hand. And that can be Ojama Monster, or it can be Ojama Spells and Traps, which is typically what you're going to be searching for with this. And that does it for the Ojama monsters. Next, onto the Melffy monster. They all have the effect that if an opponent special summons or normal summons a monster, or declares an attack targeting a Melffy monster, you can bounce the Melffy monster back to your hand to do something. So the first of these is Melffy Puppy. Melffy Puppy is your special summon from the deck effect. So if your opponent normal or special summons a monster, Melffy Puppy will bounce itself back to your hand and let you special summon a beast monster from the deck. Now the nice thing is, that is special summon a beast and not a Melffy, meaning that you can special summon your Ojamas if you've got a use for them, or you can special summon something else. The next Melffy we run is Melffy Caddy. This is your Rhoda of the Melffy archetype, in the sense that it allows you to search a beast monster and add it to your hand. So this can also let you search any of the big beasts that you might want later in the game, but we're not really running any big beasts in the main deck, but it can let you search out your Ojama Blue, or it could let you search out Melffy Puppy, or it can let you search out any of the other beast monsters that we run. Next, if we end up with a lot of beasts in our hand, we would like to use Melffy Fenny. Melffy Fenny will bounce itself back to the hand to let us special summon a beast monster from the hand. So you can use Melffy Fenny's effect to special summon something like Melffy Caddy or Melffy Puppy to use their effects later in the turn, or you can use something like Melffy Fenny to special summon some other stuff that we run in the deck, like you could put Ojama Blue on board if you haven't got one on board, but it's in your hand. It just lets you get troublesome monsters out of your hand and onto the field. And along those lines, Melffy Pony. We only run 1 copy of this because it's your recursion card. So if you end up with all your cards in the grave and you want them back in your hand, then you can use Melffy Pony to bounce it back to your... It bounces itself back to your hand, and it bounces something from your grave back to your hand as well. So it doesn't allow you to sort of recur your resources that you've maybe expended throughout the game. And that does it for the Melffy monsters. Now on to some generic sort of support monsters. First we run 3 copies of Rescue Cat. Rescue Cat lets you special summon 2 level 3 or lower monsters from the deck onto the field, which you can then use as either Xyz material or as link material. So it's just a good way for us to get into our plays with our monsters. The other monster that we run is 2 copies of Calantosa. Calantosa has the effect, if it is special summoned by a beast monster's effect, you get to target a card on your opponent's side of the field and destroy it. Meaning that this is basically a way that we can remove stuff from our opponent's board if we've had to go second, and this is a way to get stuff to the field. This can be triggered off by Fenny if it's in the hand, or it can be triggered off by Puppy if it's in the deck. So it's definitely a really useful card, but it can't be triggered by Rescue Cat just for the very simple fact that Rescue Cat does negate the effects. That does it for our monsters. Next, on to our spells. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Ojama spells that we run. The first is 2 copies of Ojama Country. This is the Ojama field spell. If you have an Ojama on field, you change the attack and defense of all monsters on the field. Meaning that because all the Ojamas have 0 attack, but they have 1,000 defense, they all gain 1,000 attack. But their boss monsters have more than that. So their boss monsters typically have 2,500 or 3,000 attack whenever Ojama Country is on the field, which is really quite nice. And then we also run 2 copies of Ojamagic. So these are all the Ojama spells that we run. This is actually all the Ojama spell traps that we run, because we don't really need much more than this. Ojama Blue's typically going to search out Ojama Country and Ojamagic. And Ojamagic's effect is when it's discarded to the graveyard, you get to add Ojama Yellow, Ojama Green, and Ojama Black to the hand. So typically what you're going to do is you're going to use Ojama Blue, and when it's destroyed by battle, you're going to search out Ojamagic and Ojama Country. Ojama Country's secondary effect lets you discard Ojamagic from the hand to special summon back your Ojama Blue, meaning that you are going to be able to cycle your Ojama Blue. You're also going to be able to gain a lot of hand advantage with Ojamagic, and you can use fusion spells and stuff like that to go into the Ojama boss monsters in this combo. On to the Melffy spells. The first Melffy spell that we run is 3 copies of Melffy Tag. This is basically your Monster Reborn. What you typically are going to do is you're going to special summon a Melffy monster from the graveyard using this, but the nice thing is it is a quick play, meaning that we are in good shape because we can trigger it on our opponent's turn to bring back whatever Melffy monster it is we need on the field so that we can get either a search or a special summon or whatever we need to get on our opponent's turn. We get to pick that, and we get to trigger it because it doesn't negate the monster's effects or anything like that. And the next is one of our second methods to recur resources from our graveyard, and that is Melffy Hide and Seek. We run 2 copies of this. Melffy Hide and Seek protects our monsters from destruction by card effect once, and the other thing that it does is we can shuffle back 3 beast monsters from our graveyard into our deck and draw a card. And so it helps us recur our deck, it helps us keep our deck full of monsters, and it recurs the resources that we're typically going to go through by using cards such as Rescue Cat, or our next card on the list, Obedient Scold, or our Melffy Caddy and Melffy Puppy. So we do consistently recur our resources, which is really good because it does mean we have follow-up plays later in the game. Next, as alluded to, Obedient Scold. We run 3 copies of this. This card lets us special summon 3 level 2 beast monsters from the deck. It negates all their effects, but that's not really a concern because typically we're going to either overlay them into the Melffy XEs or we're going to link them off into Ojama Emperor. Now they all do need to be effect monsters, so you do need to be a little careful about what you're picking, but the nice thing is now that we run the Melffy engine in the Ojama deck, we're not just sending off subpar monsters, we're actually sending off decent monsters, and we're ending up with decent monsters on the board that we don't mind expending because we have ways of recurring them back. And finally, for spells, we run 2 copies of Polymerization because, let's be honest, we're talking about Ojama here. And they're a fusion-based archetype typically, so we need Polymerization just to get into our Ojama boss monsters. And that does it for our spells. On to our traps. So we run 5 traps. That's really it. First trap that we run is Super Team Buddy Force Unite. I love this card's name. I love the artwork. It's just fantastic. It makes me think of the Ginyu Force in Dragon Ball Z, combined with the Ojamas of, well, the Ojamas, the cutest archetype in the game. So I really like this card. It basically lets us special summon from our hand or graveyard any monster that matches the type of a monster that we target on the field. So if we have a beast on the field, which, P.S. guys, we're always going to have a beast on the field, then we can target that beast and we can special summon from our hand or from the graveyard a beast monster. We're always going to have a beast in our hand or the graveyard too. The other thing is, this card floats. So if your opponent does destroy it while it's face down, you can set another copy of it straight from the deck, and you can use that later in the turn, so that's great. The other trap card that we run is 2 copies of Necrofusion. This is for our, again, like polymerization, Ojama monsters. A lot of our Ojama monsters are going to end up in the graveyard, which, let's be honest, not where you want all your cards to end up. But Necrofusion will allow us to utilize them in the graveyard because we can then banish them from the grave to go into our boss monsters, which we definitely do want to use. That's it for the main deck. So, let's talk about the extra deck. First thing that we're going to talk about in the extra deck is the Ojama monsters we run. The first Ojama monster we run is Ojama Knight, and we run 2 copies of him because he's quite generic. Any 2 Ojama monsters can make him. So using Necrofusion, you could use Ojama Blue and something else. Using Necrofusion, you could use 2 of the Ojama brothers, whichever you need to use to get into hit this. This card will then let you select 2 zones on your opponent's side of the field and make them inactive while this card remains on the field. So you can basically start turning off monster zones on your opponent's side of the field, limiting their options and their ability to play 5 monsters. They can no longer do it. They only have 3 zones they're allowed to put cards into. There is one downside, which is if your opponent has monsters in, say, 4 zones, you can only select 1 zone. You don't get to then select a second zone in later if you've removed a monster. So you do need to be a little bit careful about that, but it's not the end of the world. Also, you can recur this from the grave using Ojama Country to special summon it back if you want to, or you could use something else that we're going to talk about in just a moment. Next, we run 1 copy of Ojama King. Now, the reason we run 1 copy of him and not 2 is he's a lot harder to get into. He's a lot more specific. He needs Ojama Yellow, Ojama Green, and Ojama Black to get into him. That's fine, but his specificity does make it more difficult. He does have a benefit, though. He has 500 extra defense, meaning if Ojama Country's on the board, he has 500 extra attack. The other thing is, he takes out 3 zones. Much like Ojama Knight takes out 2, he takes out 3. The final Ojama card that we run in the extra deck is Ojama Emperor. Now, Ojama Emperor is so good for this deck. It is another form of recursion. He lets you special summon an Ojama monster from the graveyard. There is a slight downside to it, which is he locks you into fusion summoning when he does that, so you do need to be a little aware of making sure you've done all your Melffy stuff and your Xyz plays before you've actually used Ojama Emperor's effect to special summon from the graveyard. But that's not the end of the world. Also, if Ojama Country is on the field, he gains 3,000 attack, because obviously he can't switch his attack and defense, but he has the same defense, technically, I guess, as Ojama King, so he gains 3,000 attack. And that does it for Ojama monsters. Onto our Melffy monsters. The first Melffy monster we run is probably the more important one, even though it's not technically the boss monster of the Melffy archetype, and that is Melffy of the Forest. This card acts as a Rhoda for you. So basically, it takes 2 level 2 beasts, which is nice because it's generic, because you could potentially use Ojama monsters to make it. If you detach a material from this, you get to search a Melffy card, and that's any card. It can be a monster or it can be a spell, to your hand. And finally, if a Melffy card is bounced from the field back to the hand, you get to target a monster on your opponent's side of the field, and you get to negate its effects and stop it from attacking this turn. So that can be really good for you because it does act as negation on your opponent's turn. Next is the actual boss monster of the Melffy archetype, Melffy Mommy. A little concerning that it's called that, but oh well. Melffy Mommy is a really interesting Xyz because it's an Xyz that doesn't detach material from it for any reason. It requires 2 or more level 2 monsters, and it gains effects for every material attached to it over 2. So if there are 3 materials attached to it, it can't be destroyed by battle. If there are 4 materials attached to it, you take no battle damage from battles involving it. If there are 5 materials attached to it, if it attacks an opponent's monster, your opponent has that monster's attack inflicted to them as burn damage. So basically, the win con for the Melffy side of this deck is to put Melffy Mommy on the board with 5 materials and burn our opponent for their biggest monster's attack. The other benefit that Melffy Mommy has is every turn as a quick effect, she can attach any beast from your hand or from the field to her as material so that she can continue going up and ending up with more materials on her. So the turn you create her, if you create her with 2 monsters, you can then use her effect, attach another beast. On your opponent's turn, you can attach another beast, meaning that she'll have 4 materials on her at your opponent's during your opponent's turn, meaning you won't be taking battle damage. Or if you manage to make her with 3 materials, not hard, using Obedient Schooled, you could then potentially put 2 more beasts on her by your opponent's turn, meaning she can't be destroyed by battle, and she's going to burn your opponent for a lot of damage if they have to attack into it. The one problem I do have with Melffy Mommy, she has no protection from card effects. And I think that is the main reason that Melffy Hide and Seek does exist. It is to protect her from card effects. That does it for the Melffy monsters we run. Now there is another Melffy monster coming out in Phantom Rage, which does a lot of exciting stuff for the archetype. But we'll have to save that for another video. Now, on to some of the other monsters we run in the extra deck. Some of these you'll recognize from a lot of my profiles because I really like them. Others you may not recognize, but that's fine. The first is another Xyz monster in Ronin Raccoon Sendayu. Now what this card does is it lets you produce a token. You detach material from it to produce a token who has the same stats as the highest attack monster on the field. Meaning you can use this to match up with anything your opponent might put on the field that intimidates you. The other thing is, he can't be destroyed by battle unless all other beasts are destroyed on the field. So if he's the last beast standing, he can be destroyed, but otherwise, your opponent can't destroy this card by battle. Next, onto the links that we run. First, we run some summoning mechanic links in Predaplant Verte Anaconda. This is really good for this deck because we don't run that many fusion spells. We run 2 polymerization and that's it. So this helps us guarantee that we can see it if we need to. The other thing is we can use Rescue Cat to go into this, and if we have Ojamagic in our hand and find a way to discard Ojamagic, we can discard Ojamagic and get the 3 brothers. This will then give us a Ojama King. It does let us see the fusion spells when we need to see him, but it does cost him 2 materials, obviously, because we have to get into him first. Now, this deck now has 2 main summoning mechanics in the extra deck, and that is Fusion and Xyz. So we are running the Bujin link, Bujinki Ahashima. I'm going with that. I've probably pronounced it wrong. If I have, let me know in the comments down below. But Bujin Ahashima will allow you to special summon 1 card from your hand and 1 card from the graveyard with the same level, and then instantly let you overlay them to go into your Xyz plays. And so that's a really good thing for us because it does allow us to go into our Xyz plays and see Melffy of the Forest and continue playing through the Melffy engine if we need to go into that. The final monster we run that supports a summoning mechanic in a way is IP Masquerena. The reason we run IP is that both of these lock us out of special summoning monsters willy-nilly. This locks us out of special summoning any monster after we use its effect, and this locks us into Xyz. So if we make IP Masquerena before either of these, then on our opponent's turn, we can link IP Masquerena and either of these off to go into the boss of our link, Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax. Now, you've probably seen this card in a lot of my profiles. This is my favorite card in the game. I absolutely love it. It's the boss monster of my favorite deck, Crusadia Mech Knight. But I love this card. I think it's such a good card. It really does help this deck specifically because it makes it so that we can do the stuff behind the scenes, or behind him at least, to combo off and see the cards we need to see and maybe get into the boss monsters we need to get into for our 2 archetypes that are the main focus of this deck. That does it for the extra deck. Okay, so my final thoughts on this deck are, okay, it's not a super consistent deck. It's not going to go win a regionals or possibly even win a locals, but it is definitely going to catch some people off guard. The Ojama engine in the deck is quite succinct and small. It has room to grow if better support comes out later, like Ojama Pink. I'm not saying that's a bad card, it's just not great. But if there is more cards coming out for the Ojama engine that I think would work better, then that would be really great. But I don't see Ojama getting a ton of support in the future. So the Ojama engine is quite small and succinct. The whole point really is to get to Ojama Country and Oja Magic using Ojama Blue, and then these guys act as cannon fodder or as necrofusion fodder later in the game, allowing us to turn off our opponent's zones is really, really good, and it's something that the Ojamas do really well, assuming you can get into your boss monsters. If you can't get into your boss monsters, you do have a little bit of help in Ojama Emperor, allowing you to recur stuff back from the grave whenever you need to. So the Ojama engine allows us to control our opponent's board state really well. The Melffy engine, however, allows us to go into our deck and find whatever cards we need to improve our own board state. And their boss monsters help with that too. Melffy of the Forest allowing us to search, and Melffy Mommy allowing us to find a different route to breaking our opponent down, maybe without even breaking their board, because Ojama doesn't break boards well. And so Melffy, it circumnavigates the inability to break boards by giving us something like Melffy Mommy. The other benefit I would like to point out is that Melffy of the Forest has 2,000 defense, meaning if Ojama Country is on the field and Melffy of the Forest is on the field, Melffy of the Forest will have 2,000 attack, which is really nice. But that does only happen if there is an Ojama monster already on the field. On top of that, we have Obedience School, which is just such a great play starter for this entire deck. Being able to bring out 3 level 2 beasts, which we could put into a Melffy Mommy, or we could put into a Melffy of the Forest, is really, really good. We can also potentially link all 3 off to go into Ojama Emperor, bringing back Ojama Blue, assuming that's one of the things we special summon with Obedience School, and them continue playing that way. Now, Obedience School does have the limitation you have to have no monsters on your field. That's a bit unfortunate, but typically, with this deck, that is definitely possible beyond turn 1, which is a little upsetting to say, but this is a fun deck at the end of the day. I really enjoy it. I hope you guys have too. Make sure you do leave us a like, comment, and subscribe. Link to the team's Facebook page is down in the description below. And if you'd like to see this deck in action, the test hands will be coming out later this week. Link to them will be in the description below as soon as they go live. And with that being said, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I will see you guys at the next video.